All right. Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have this conversation with Jana Carlson. She holds the distinct honor of being our very first writer's block teacher back in late January. And so she is returning today to talk to us about how we can serve our readers well through learning some kind of modern day techniques called SEO. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with Jana. And so, Jana, I will let you do the honors of kind of giving us an idea of what SEO is. We might all have kind of a vague idea of what it is, but can you define it for us and tell us more about it?
Sure. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. So we're all familiar with search engines. Most of us use Google search. I use it multiple times a day. Bing is another popular one. And even if you use Siri on your phone, or I don't know what the Android version of Siri is called, but if you ask your phone a question, that is a type of search engine as well. So with our websites, we want our websites to show up in those search results. So in order to do that, we need to optimize our websites to be what search engines are looking for. And so that is what the process of SEO is. So for example, we could have two websites that are selling the exact same product. Both websites look fantastic, but one is optimized for SEO and the other one isn't. The one that is optimized will show up in search results, but the other one probably won't, even though they're selling the exact same product. So with just a little bit of effort, you can attract more people to your website by targeting search engines.
Oh, that's so interesting. I love what you said about just even the features of speaking into your phone, that is a search. I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought of it that way. I always think of going to the Google bar on my browser and that's the search engine, but just even, speaking into your phone, you're doing a search.
Yes.
And that's interesting. So there's just, these search engines are just our means of gathering answers to our questions, right? And we kind of do that in a lot of different ways. Like I remember when I learned that Pinterest was actually a search engine, that kind of blew my mind, because that's not at all how I, as a user, was looking at it as a way of using it as a search engine. I thought of it, this is a social media platform.
Right.
But that's not necessarily what it is.
Right. Yeah.
So for those of us who feel like, this sounds really technical and maybe outside of my comfort zone of technical knowledge, it sounds intimidating. So can you tell us a little bit about how, maybe it is or it is not, or how can we look at it if we're afraid of it?
So SEO is a huge topic, and there are aspects of it that are extremely technical and overwhelm me as well. So that is true. However, there are plenty of incredibly effective and easy SEO techniques that any writer can implement without any technical expertise at all. So you certainly don't have to be an SEO expert to effectively use SEO strategies and see results. You can even see immediate results. So whenever I teach SEO, I like to stick to the basics that anyone can handle. And I teach it in a way that's easy to understand and easy to implement immediately. So my key is easy. So at least for this week's teaching, there's no reason to be intimidated or overwhelmed, because my goal is to make it easily digestible and accessible to everyone. And So it's about keeping it simple. And like I said, SEO is a huge topic. You could actually take like a course for a whole semester of school on SEO. But unless you desire to become an actual technical SEO expert, it's not necessary to know all the details to benefit from just a few simple SEO techniques.
Okay, so yay for beginners, yay for easy. I think we can all sign up for that. Like we can all learn some of these techniques to help us really make our words and all of the labors of our hearts that we all labor on as we sit at our computers and put words into the world. Like it helps that go further and last longer, which I think we all are eager to see that happen. So tell us a little bit about like your history with this. Like, how did you get interested in learning about SEO? And you mentioned that you teach classes. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
So I first heard about SEO during my first professional writing job. My boss hired an SEO agency for her website, and that led me to take an SEO course so that I could implement some of those strategies in the work that I was doing for my boss. And so the knowledge I gained from that first course I took equipped me to serve not only my employer at that time, but every freelance client I've had since then, as well as my own audience. It's been incredibly valuable, and I sort of fell in love with it. It's almost like a game to me. Like when I am writing for SEO, I like to just kind of see how high can I rank this blog post or whatever. So yeah, it kind of just became fun for me. I've always desired to help my freelance clients and my readers in practical ways. I just like making everything practical. And because SEO is a skill not every writer has, my SEO knowledge was something that set me apart from other freelance writers. And it was just something extra I could offer. But God has also gifted me to teach. So I combined my SEO knowledge with my teaching ability, and I started offering SEO courses for small business owners, which I taught online. But now I've just kind of rewritten that whole thing for my current audience of Christian writers.
Oh, I love that. Like you've just kind of taken something and retooled it, refashioned it for a purpose and an audience that you are serving. So I really love that. That kind of reminds me, I don't know if anyone has been able to see the writing tip for today, but we're going into a new book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And that's kind of the thesis of his whole work, is that's how you create, is you find ideas and you refashion them in some way and that's how artists, there's like nothing new under the sun, except for maybe SEO, right? That might be new. Anyway, so why should we as Christian writers, why bother? Like, again, like this feels outside of comfort zones for some of us. But why is this a worthy pursuit?
I genuinely believe SEO is a way that we can better serve our readers and love them well. And I believe that because of my own experience as a reader and someone who uses search engines all day long. I like to think of it this way. Imagine that you are the mother of a prodigal daughter and your heart is heavy and you've been praying for decades that your daughter would return to the Lord, and you're just so discouraged and you don't know if you can take another day of praying. And so you start Googling out of desperation how to persevere in praying for your prodigal. And Google comes up with a list of results. And there are a few fluffy listicle articles that might have encouraged you a decade ago, but there's nothing new and nothing that you can relate to. And so your Google search leads to further discouragement. Now imagine that you're a Christian writer who has walked that road of persevering in prayer for decades for your prodigal, and you've skillfully written your story in a way that engages the reader, doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, and points your reader to the hope we have in Jesus Christ. Your content equips and encourages moms of prodigals to persevere in prayer by presenting them with practical tools, and your website even offers an active community of praying moms of prodigals for support. So naturally, you desire as many of these searching moms to find your website as possible, because you genuinely want to support them and encourage them and love them. And that's a really good desire. I truly believe that SEO is one of the ways we as Christian writers can fulfill our calling to love and serve others well by drawing the people to our work who need or are looking for what we have to offer. It's a way we can look not only to our own interests, but also to the interests of others, as it says in Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. By developing our website in a way that draws in the people who genuinely need what our website provides, we help our audience find what they're looking for. It's kind of like SEO is a way of meeting our reader halfway. We have something they need, they're looking for something, and SEO kind of brings us together. In my Writing for God's Glory workshop, we look at what the Bible has to say about popularity and platform building. And John the Baptist is one of our examples, and he was immensely popular, not because of his own efforts, but because of his eccentricities and his controversial message. But he wanted as many people as possible to know Jesus as their Savior. He said in John 3, verse 30, "He must increase, but I must decrease." And in the same way, we as Christian writers who desire to glorify God with our writing naturally desire more people to benefit from our message, because if our message points them to Jesus, that's the ultimate goal. So I think SEO is a tool we can use to accomplish that goal. And what I love about it is it's kind of a way of increasing the traffic to our site, but without elevating ourselves in the way that we typically think about like self-promotion. As Christian writers, possibly more than other writers, we have a continual battle over platform building. We understandably resist self-promotion because it seems in opposition to God's desire for humble hearts. We are uncomfortable with marketing ourselves or our products, and we cringe at the idea of using salesy techniques or anything that hints at pride or self-centeredness. And that's a whole other topic for another day. And we talk about that in my other workshop, but it's one of the reasons why I love SEO, because it's a way of intentionally and actively connecting your target audience with your platform without getting salesy or self-promotional. It's a completely unobtrusive and legitimate way of getting your work in front of the people who will really benefit from it. So that's the missional side of SEO for Christian writers, but there are multiple benefits of SEO from a marketing or business perspective. And here's another practical aspect that I find appealing on so many levels. Besides search engines, there are various ways someone might find your website. Two of the most common are advertising or social media. The problem with advertising is that even though it can be highly effective, it's also costly. And most aspiring Christian writers can't afford it. So that doesn't seem like a doable option. Social media can be effective to a certain degree, but it relies on algorithms that constantly change. It can be extremely time consuming. And for many Christians like myself, it's overwhelming. So social media has its place, and it can be an effective tool in building a platform as a Christian writer. But strictly speaking about driving traffic to your website, statistics suggest that the value of social media is inconsistent and often questionable. Word of mouth is another way to grow your audience, but it's unpredictable and typically slow. There are many other ways you can grow your audience, like being a guest on a podcast or guest writing for other websites. Those are just two examples. So many of these methods are highly effective, but they're all labor intensive and time consuming. And it seems like they never end. You have to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. Alternatively, effective SEO can generate a significant amount of website traffic with comparatively less effort and without spending a dime. When you optimize a specific blog post for search engines, you do the work once, and it can generate search engine traffic for years to come. So it does take effort at the beginning, but the reward lasts longer. And the return on your investment, because the investment is only the investment of your time, is much greater than with other methods in a lot of cases.
Wow. You gave us a lot to think about just now. So many good nuggets of truth in there for us to really consider about, number one, how this is a benefit to our readers. We're serving them and we're loving them by making our work more visible. And in your example of the prodigal, right? Like that, that's meeting people right where they are. And it may not be, a few days after you post, but it could be something that gives you a good ROI for years to come. So I love that idea. And then you also talked a lot about how this is not it's not the showmanship often that we think of when we think of self-promotion. And so what you're saying is that this is a very practical, and I think you used the word tactical, way of positioning yourself, which is what we talked about last week, online. And so I think maybe one of the things that we often struggle with when SEO comes up, I know in my own mind, I kind of tend to think, oh, this is just dry and boring. And it just feels, after you've put your creative efforts into your writing, for example, this feels like a different mindset shift. Like we have to switch gears a little bit in our writing. So could you talk to us a little bit about that? Do you find that it's a very dry and kind of mechanical thing that you have to learn how to do?
It can be, and many people who implement SEO techniques, they do it in a way that results in dry content. And it can be formulaic. Some people implement it in a very formulaic way, and maybe it's just because I have a trained eye, but for me, it's very easy sometimes when I come across an article or something and I read it and I think, oh, well, they wrote this specifically for SEO. It's very obvious in the way that they've done it. That said, it does not have to be that way. However, when you're learning, there's no getting around the fact that when you're learning SEO, it will feel maybe not dry or formulaic or boring, but it will feel more technical than just sitting down and letting the creativity flow, because there are specific factors that you do need to take into consideration. But one of the most positive changes in Google's search algorithms in recent years is the attention to the quality of the content. And so it no longer works to stick to a formula that includes all the right technical aspects, but is painful for readers to read. One way search engines measure the quality of a page is by how long people stay on the page. So if people start reading and they get bored and then they leave, to Google, that looks like, well, that page probably isn't very high quality. But if your readers come and they keep reading and they're interested to the end, they'll stay on the page much longer. And Google tracks that and recognizes that, and it implies to Google that the content on that page is genuinely helpful and therefore good quality. So I love that change. Because I think it encourages us as Christian writers to continue to hone our writing skills, encourages us to really know and understand our readers so we can love and care for them more effectively. And it prompts us to question how we can best serve them. We can ask, what is my reader looking for? What questions do they have that I can answer? How can I best provide what they need? And I think this sets us apart from those who develop content strictly for the sake of numbers, just to grow a bigger platform or get higher visitor counts. To us, our readers are more than numbers. We genuinely care about their needs, their hearts, and SEO helps us serve them more effectively in that regard. So while implementing SEO does involve some technical things that may seem dry on the surface, because of the heart behind what we write, it doesn't have to look that way to our reader. And it doesn't even have to feel that way as we're putting our piece together. If we see our writing as a form of ministry, I see SEO as a part of my ministry. And I think that perspective shift can take some of that dryness out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that in the same way that if we were working in a church and we were learning how to schedule our volunteers and we were learning how to offer things that our congregants wanted and needed, like this is that same mindset shift in our writing. It like helps us serve our people better. And I really like that. And I've noticed too, like I've written for clients as well who've said, we want to rank for these keywords. And it does seem like, you know, when you're writing for ranking, it does kind of take that dry, formulaic, like, oh, I see what you're doing here. You're just keyword stuffing. You're just putting as many, keywords into this article, and it's not very helpful to me. But the shift of things being Google rewarding pages that are actually truly helpful. That's an encouraging thing, because I think that makes it feel like, okay, this is worthy. Like I don't have to just check off these few boxes and make it work, but I'm still developing the craft of the writing, but also with this mindset of ranking for SEO to serve more people.
Right. And the flip side of that change in Google's algorithm is Google actually penalizes websites or pages that keyword stuff, what you referred to there. So for those who don't know, keyword stuffing is if you want to rank for a certain search term. So say you want to rank for, how
to study your Bible.
How to study your Bible. Perfect. And then you include that phrase, how to study your Bible, 100 times in your blog post just to make sure that Google knows that's what it's about. Google sees that and is like, okay, this is definitely not quality writing. This is someone who's keyword stuffing. They just want to be noticed. They don't actually have anything valuable to say. So again, that's another positive shift for those of us who genuinely desire to write valuable content. The other change that I'm seeing as a result of that is it used to be, before Google made these positive changes, that if you wanted to rank for a certain search term in Google, you would Google that search term and look at the top 10 results that come up. And we still do that. And we'll talk about that on Thursday. But you would read those top 10 articles and they were all the same. Like they just all seemed exactly the same. Maybe they said some things in a different order or whatever, but there was very little new from one article to the next. And now with this shift in Google's algorithm, I think it actually encourages more original content. And this might seem disconnected, but I think it's related with the new, with the introduction of AI in the writing space with ChatGPT and some of the other AI tools in software like Canva and that sort of thing. A lot of people are generating SEO content using AI. And what I've found is that content is very dry, ridiculously dry. Like it's shocking that anyone would actually use it. But I'm reading, I actually just read an article this morning from an expert in the industry who says that Google is going to catch on, and there is already software in play that recognizes AI generated content. And so search engines are going to start rewarding original content more. And one of the ways that I used to be discouraged by the introduction of AI in the writing space because it stole some of my work. But what we have as Christian writers is that we're writing about something a computer knows nothing about. And that is faith and our relationship in Jesus Christ. And that's something a computer can't write about. We have personal experiences that we can share that will really engage our readers and bring encouragement that mere information cannot bring. And so that's something that we can really leverage if you want to talk about it in worldly terms of success. The heart behind our writing is something that sets us apart from anything that's written strictly from a technical SEO standpoint.
Oh, that's so encouraging. I think that I too felt super threatened by AI and the emergence of that in the writing world. And I think you're so right on that because
they can't write about
there
it.
is so much freedom that we have to have perspective on truth and not just spit out, how, in the marketing world, there's just only so much you can say about, how to start a website, how to market your work. But in the Christian space, like we all have different unique angles on things. And so I really appreciate that you said that. That gives us a lot of encouragement to keep going in the current climate of things. So what are you going to talk with us about on Thursday?
So I'm really excited about Thursday. Thursday is going to be a step-by-step detailed walkthrough of how to use on-page SEO. So that's the stuff that you actually see when you go to a website. It will be like you're sitting beside me at my desk as I implement simple, easy SEO strategies to write a blog post. So you'll see what the process looks like from a blank page to a published blog post. So you'll see in real time how to use SEO in a natural, manageable, and effective way. And then after that's all over, I'll share a simple beginner's SEO checklist that you can download and follow every time you write content for your website. So it'll be a word of warning. It will probably go a little bit over our usual time. But I think it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so exciting. And I think so many of us will probably learn better that way, to watch you kind of do it. And we learn by watching that way. So I'm assuming that, A lot of us have different platforms on which we're working, WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or whatever the case may be. Will these principles kind of transcend platform specific things?
Yes. On-page SEO is not the technical stuff at the back end of your website. So it won't matter that there are various platforms represented here. That said, each of those platforms do have like SEO tools or whatever that you can use. And I'm not familiar I'm familiar with WordPress. That's what I've always used. So I'm not familiar with the other ones. But for a majority of the stuff that I'll be showing you on Thursday, it will apply to absolutely everybody.
Oh, that's great. I think that will be, it's more about the principles of SEO and like you said, on page. So basically you're going to be taking like a blog post, for example, right?
Yeah.
And walking us through the things that you do. So in your experience with your own knowledge that you've acquired and started to implement in your own writing, what has changed for you? Have you seen improvement in your traffic to your website?
Absolutely. I don't necessarily implement SEO in everything I write by far. Like if I'm writing just a devotional post or whatever, I don't really care about SEO. But some blog posts that I write, I do target SEO intentionally. And in those cases, I definitely see it bringing in a lot more traffic. With my previous blog that I had a few years ago, Wield the Word, right after I took an SEO course, I wrote a blog post about, I think the title was God is Still on the Throne. And I specifically implemented SEO for that blog post. And within like an hour of it going live, it became the second spot on Google search for that keyword. And I've repeated that process multiple times since then, not only for my own work, but also for my clients' work. And so, and that's not even using some of the extra more advanced techniques that are available. Like everything that I'm teaching you, you can actually get the same result that I'm getting, even though you're brand new. So I just want to answer Carrie's question about keywords. So when we talk about keywords, it's basically whatever you're typing into the search bar. So whatever the search query is. So if you're searching for swimming goggles, that's the keyword, is swimming goggles. Kara mentioned earlier how to study the Bible. If that's the key, if that's the search term that you want to target, then those are the keywords that you're using. And so that could be words in the body of your text, or it could be tags. It could be both. So we'll talk more about that on Thursday.
Okay. Well, that's a good transition for us. I think we've covered the high points, but I know that this is one of those topics that everyone has some familiarity with and probably has some questions. So let's open it up. And if you have some questions you'd like to ask Jana, just know that she may say, tune in on Thursday, and I'll explain that in more detail on Thursday. So you might just have to get a little teaser for that, but I'm sure she's willing to answer questions now too.
Yeah, for sure.
This may be a question you're going to answer on Thursday, but I was just wondering, how do you choose your keyword? I mean, a lot of times we have a options on what we're going to, how we're going to word something in our post. And so how do you choose it? Is that something you're going to cover on?
We will definitely be talking about that on Thursday. Yeah, that's a very good question, though.
Because there's a lot of times it's the wisdom. I mean, a lot of times it's what's your competition, and where you go to check it and all those kind of things. So
yeah, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that on Thursday.
Jana, do you, when you sit down to write, I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but this is my common experience, is that I write and then I'm like, I don't even know exactly where I'm going until I start writing. And so can you do SEO in reverse order instead of searching for a thing that you could possibly rank for? Can you write your piece and then go and do SEO and then kind of tweak it a little bit so that it will rank? Do you ever do it in that order?
I personally don't, but it's not impossible. You could do it that way, but chances are that the final piece would probably be quite different from your original piece. It would kind of depend on what your topic was and it would kind of depend what kind of piece you were writing, but you could certainly implement a few SEO techniques that wouldn't change the piece too much, but also might not be as effective as doing it the other way, kind of having an SEO plan from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's largely why a lot of the pieces I write, I just don't care about SEO. Like, this is what I want to write and I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just trust that whoever needs to read this or wants to read this will read it and they'll enjoy it. And I'm not using this piece as a way of attracting readers to my website.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, like, in the Christian writing world, like, let's just use devotionals, for example. Like, a lot of devotionals will have like a personal anecdote or some type of story at the beginning, and then maybe quote a single Bible verse and have like a bit of application at the end or something like that. It's sometimes, first of all, there's not a lot of content there. Devotionals tend to be shorter than like a more longer informational type post. So the short length immediately makes it more difficult to rank in search engines. But also because it tends to be shorter and like quite like maybe story-based or just very a very, very specific, like one main point that is just kind of stated at the very end. It's not as informational. It's very difficult to rank for SEO just using a devotional in that type of a format.
Yeah. Is it true that Google prefers about 2,500 words is generally, I mean, that's long for a lot of us in our posts.
Yeah, the actual word count is debated. It depends on your source, but typically it seems like, 1,800 to like 4,000, like definitely longer blog posts rank better on Google than shorter ones for sure. But that being said, it does depend a little bit on your like your niche. Like one of the clients that I wrote for had a very, very specific business that there wasn't a whole lot of competition for them. And their blog posts were never more than 500 words. And yet they still ranked because there just was no information online about that particular industry. So they were the exception because there just wasn't competition. So it didn't really matter how short their blog posts were. Anything that they put out there was welcome for anyone looking for that type of content.
Yeah, they were becoming the voice of authority in that space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was an advantage for them. So in that sense, the more specific your niche is, the better it is for you from an SEO perspective. But I find for most Christian writers, it tends to be less specific than that.
Yeah. I think Cheryl had a question. You need to unmute.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question, Kara, about whether you write first and then identify keywords, or if you take keywords and then write your post? Because I was assuming it was just done that way. You write first and then you kind of tweak it to fit these categories. So along those lines, then, can you do that for your whole website, or is it just specific posts that you're going to be, I don't know, tagging or having keywords in to be found? Can you do it?
You can definitely, yes, you can definitely do it for your whole website, and you should. I encourage you to do that for your whole website. And this actually brings up a really important point. In order for you to use SEO effectively, you need to know who your audience is. And Amy has done teaching on that. I believe it's in the archives on the block. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you do not know who your audience is, if you don't know what they're looking for, what kind of content they want, you could do SEO perfectly, but it wouldn't be effective because you wouldn't be reaching the people that you want to reach. So it's very, very important that you know who you're writing for, and that you have a clear message. Like, the more clear you are about the purpose of your website, who your website is meant to speak to, and what it is that your website offers, the more effective your SEO will be.
That's so good. And it always is convicting to me a little bit, because I think when you think about that, you're like, am I really fulfilling my purpose in my writing? I think that's such a good reminder for us. Rosemary raised her hand. Zoom just told me. Let's go to Rosemary.
This is a very basic question, but I don't know the answer, so that's why I'm asking. I understand using all these correct SEO words on your website. Do you use them on everywhere you write? Like Kara mentioned, Pinterest. So would you make your caption using SEO words, and would you make your social media do you use it everywhere you post on the internet?
You can. So the kind of SEO techniques I'm going to teach you on Thursday are talking about like a specific keywords that would relate more to like one single piece of writing or one single web page. So like for me, for example, I have a twofold audience. I write to women who want to learn to love God's word and live it out. And I write to aspiring Christian writers who want to write for God's glory. So there are certain broad key phrases that would apply to almost everything I write. And so those key phrases just kind of naturally come through in my writing because of the nature of what I write. But the kind of SEO that we'll be talking about on Thursday is a lot more targeted. So it's like, I'm writing a blog post about how to study the Bible. I want to target the keyword how to study the Bible for people who are literally Googling how to study the Bible. So that would be one specific piece that I'm writing that will go on my website that will appeal to my audience, but wouldn't necessarily apply to absolutely everything I write. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Like if you're writing social media posts, like let's say you're on Instagram and you're thinking about like hashtags or whatever, like there are certain hashtags that you might want to put on every single post because they're more general and they apply to everything. Like, let's say like if I was on Instagram, because one of my audiences is Christian writers, maybe I would use the hashtag Christian writers or whatever. That's more general, but the more general your keywords, the harder it is to rank for them, the less likely that you'll actually rank for them. It takes a lot of work, a lot of techniques to rank for very, very broad topics and keywords. So that's why What I'm teaching on Thursday is about something more specific about a single piece that you're writing, because it's easier to rank for that. And if you can draw in a new reader who just reads that one piece as their introduction to you, that might turn them into, a longtime reader who reads that one piece and, oh, I like this. I wonder what else she writes. And then they'll start exploring some of your other stuff. So there are certainly keywords that you could implement everywhere. And because, as Kara said, Pinterest is a search engine, there are SEO techniques that you can implement on Pinterest as well, but that would look a little bit different than what I'm teaching on Thursday. Thursday will be more about like a single web page or a blog post or piece that you're writing.
Hi, George. I think I've got it.
Okay.
I had a question. So talking about the length, that Google likes longer length things. I've heard of a strategy of using, I think they're called pillar posts, or what some people would call them, like purposefully creating a longer than normal post that maybe is representative of a lot of the different types of work you do, and kind of focusing that on like, okay, let's do all the SEO things, whatever they are. I'm looking forward to finding out because I don't know. And putting them in, like, and having, 3 or 4 pillar posts. Is that a good strategy?
Yes, that is very good. It is a very effective thing to do. It takes a lot of time and work, but as I said, once you've done it, it'll serve you well for a long time and serve your readers well for a long time. The thing about that though, is that's only a part of the strategy. So you're talking about this pillar post. Let's say it's 4,000 words. Let's say it's a really comprehensive look. Let's use how to study your Bible. Let's say it's a really comprehensive post about how to study your Bible. And you have an introduction, and you have a section about context, and a section about word studies, and a section of tools, commentaries, and there's all these really specific topics. You covered it really well. So that post on its own would be really effective, but you don't want that to be the end for your reader. So it would be even more beneficial to wait to publish that pillar post until you have first published some smaller posts that go deeper into each of those sections. And then that pillar post would then link to each of those smaller posts. So you have the pillar post is literally a pillar, and then you've got these branches that lead off of it into all the other different posts on that topic on your website. And that is a very, very powerful tool. So I wouldn't target a pillar post as the first thing that you want to do. I would do the smaller ones first, but you need to have a plan. Like there needs to be a bit of strategy into what those posts will be about. You need to kind of have that pillar post in your head before you're doing the shorter ones.
And I'll get to Martha next. That brings up a thought in my mind about that pillar post. Like, I would imagine that getting the title right on that pillar post, how important is that? Or is that based on what your keyword phrase is that you're trying to rank for? Does that make sense? Because you could spend a lot of time writing a 4,000 word post, and if it's not necessarily titled right or got the right keywords, is it possible that you've just wasted a lot of energy and effort? Does that question make sense? Because I'm just thinking, like, often I find that is such a key factor in getting traction in my own work, is like the titling of something really helps engage the reader or not.
Yeah. A title is definitely a crucial piece, SEO or not. If your title is not drawing in a reader, then you've lost them even before they've begun. So the title is definitely important, and you do use SEO in crafting your title. The thing with SEO is it's not, I don't think it's fair to say that if you fail at your title, you'll fail at SEO. Because SEO has so many factors, Google looks at so many factors, that if you have a weak title, it won't completely sabotage your efforts, because if everything else is wonderful, Google will still see those other factors. Like there's literally hundreds of factors that Google takes into consideration for SEO. And so, and there isn't like a ranking system, like this factor is the most important, then Google looks at this one, then Google looks at this one. It doesn't work that way. It's like a giant network of factors that Google looks at, and the title is one of those factors. Some of them are definitely more important than others, and I would say that the title is one of the important ones, but the title isn't what will necessarily make or break your SEO efforts, if that makes sense.
Thank you for addressing that. Martha,
the other thing I wondered is, I'm sure that a 4,000 word post is really good, but what about if you have all of those articles on a landing page? Does that have any help? Is that any help? Like if you've got all of those articles on a landing page.
So like, how are you, like, so a landing page?
So what if you have all of the articles that go together for that on a landing page together, so they're linked? Right.
That can be effective as well. You wouldn't necessarily have to have a pillar post. So if I'm understanding you correctly, like kind of how I'm thinking of it is like
a series.
An example could be a category on your blog. Like let's say on your blog you have a category about humility, for example. Somebody clicks on the category button or whatever for humility, and then the page comes up, and every single post you've written about humility is on that page. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking more of a specific series. So like, say there's a series, I have a series on benedictions. So there's 10 in that series. And so that's on a landing page. And anytime you read one article, there's a link to all the rest in that series.
Right.
So I don't know if that carries any more weight if they are connected to the landing page. You know, like
it could be. I would say that one thing that would make that landing page more effective would be if it also had additional content, not just links to the series, but like, you know, like maybe some
has a different
text.
title. It has a different title, but
yeah,
like I think what she's saying is like you would want to beef up that collection, because what you've done is you've curated a bunch of links, and that would be a great resource for people, which would probably do well SEO. But I think what Jana is saying is that you would want to build out that content and add more copy to that landing page, so that there's more weight to it, versus like I've curated a bunch of links for you, but you're creating a whole new, like, let me explain the theory, the design behind the benedictions series, like take a step back and like give an overview. Is that right?
And then each one of those has a different, each one of the benedictions has a different SEO keyword.
Yep. That would be fine. But if you want that landing page to rank for a specific keyword, let's say the word is benedictions, it would be helpful if at least some of the smaller articles that are linked on that page, if those also target that same keyword.
Okay.
And a single article can target more than one keyword or key phrase. You can target many on a single post. So it doesn't have to be just one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think too, like it's a good idea to think of SEO as a long range plan and game, right, Jana?
Yeah.
Like this is some things that we can implement into our work now. We can probably take the things that you're going to teach us on Thursday and go back in time over our work and start applying things, but know that all of these things will build over time, right?
Yes.
It takes some time to see some results from the work that this is.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, actually my first exposure to SEO, the agency that my boss hired, they were an agency, professionals who do this all day long. And they said that the typical website doesn't necessarily see measurable results for at least 6 months to a year. So, and I can tell you that I have seen exceptions to that personally. So there are definitely exceptions to that rule, but that just goes to show you that even for these professionals who implement these day in and day out, it takes time. And part of that is because it takes a while for Google to discover all of these pages and make the connections and that kind of thing. So that's part of it. But there's so much content being added to the internet on a daily basis. And it's all being cataloged and so your competition grows on a daily basis, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a long game, as Kara said, but a worthwhile one. And I also find that when you're writing with SEO in mind, it actually has benefits to even just your writing skills. Like it forces you to really pay attention to what is it that I'm trying to say here? What is my message? And so even if you're not seeing SEO results right away, I think you'll just see positive changes in the quality of your writing in general as a result of thinking about SEO.
Oh, that's so encouraging. And what we're about here, right, is that we were wanting to grow in the art. This is art form right now, but it will help our heart words go further. So I love that. I want to respect everyone's time. And I also want to, hopefully encourage you to keep tuning in, to come back on Thursday, because I know there's probably more unanswered questions. So tune in, and also feel free to, drop some questions into our block chat, and we can continue this conversation in our own community. So we're going to sign off for now and hopefully see you all on Thursday. Thank you, Jana, so much.
Looking forward to Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.